folks, Scott here with the new Hero Studio Card Kit of the Month for November of 2025. This kit is called One More Chapter. It's all about books. Let's dive right in. To begin with, we have this To Be Read pile 4x6-inch stamp set. This will make more sense as soon as we get into the dies, but these are all book spines. The spines of books, all of these with some text in there. Thank you, inspiring, fantastic, awesome, amazing. You are extraordinary, wonderful, incredible. Those all go along with the To Be Read pile coordinating dies. Now this makes sense. So we have our main die here, which is a stack of 8 books, 2, 4, 6, 8 books. And then we have 8 dies separately that will do the covers of the books, not the pages. So I guess we would cut the main die out of pages and then glue the spines on top. We would then stamp all of the spines on the top pieces. That is the 4x6-inch To Be Read pile stamp set and coordinating dies. And then we get the Happy Place die set, which actually gives us a person reading a book, holding the book up. This is kind of a great fun little die set. This is a body and arms and hands, decorations for the book, pages of the book. This is like the head, forehead, and hair. On top of that, we've got 2 styles of hair, and it looks like an extra piece here. Some flowers, flower centers, leaves, more flowers, so you can decorate the book, decorate the hair, somebody actually reading the book. This is the Happy Place die set, and it goes along with, as well, the Professional Bookworm 3x4-inch stamp and cut set. So these are the sentiments. The book is better. If you need me, I'll be reading my books or my Happy Place Book Lovers Club, just one more chapter, book, Professional Bookworm, I'm reading, and dies for all of those stamps. Again, those are perfect sentiments to go along with this die set that shows somebody with a book in front of their face. Do we have a die set yet that actually shows us a person with a phone in front of their face? A big extra this month is this 1-ounce pack of Hero Wax Gold. This is gold Hero Wax, a full-size 1 fluid ounce tub. I am a little surprised that we get Hero Wax. I understand that as far as like book bindings, but you can't really stamp with that. I'm surprised we don't have some kind of a stencil. Anyway, and then we do get our cardstock. We got 10 sheets of 5.5 by 8.5-inch cardstock. We've got Bellini, Coral, Carrot, Terracotta, Beeswax, Saffron, Tuscan, Peridot, Seaside, and Waterfall. That's our cardstock for the month. These are our stamps and dies. Not a lot of coloring to do this month, but we've got lots of stuff to play with. So let's crack open a book together. And here we have our 10 cards for the month, all on white card bases. No surprise there. Everything's an A2 sized card. So naturally, I started with the To Be Read pile stamps and dies. I do like the dimension that the separate covered dies provide. And that takes us to our first card of the month, and we have a plain thank you card. Nice shiny book bindings on that. A simple thank you right in the center. I started this card by die cutting the book pile die from some plain ivory cardstock. Now I do keep some plain old, this is like Staples grade ivory cardstock in my stash. I keep that along with some plain Staples grade gray cardstock. It's good for scratch paper. It's good for almost anything that ails you. I keep that in my stash. It's inexpensive, decent cardstock. Then I die cut the 8 book covers from the Spellbinders cardstock included in the kit. So we've got a terracotta, beeswax, Saffron, and Tuscan. I stamped and embossed the book bindings using Versamark ink with Hero Arts gold and silver embossing powder. I also used some Love from Lizzie Golden Crown embossing powder, which is that little bit darker gold there. And of course, some white embossing powder for the thank you. Then it was a simple matter of gluing the book covers on top of the full pile. But beware, all of the cover dies line up edge to edge except for the fourth book down from the top. The left side of the fourth book cover has to layer on top of the fifth book cover die. So I discovered that a little late. I suppose it's best to glue these book covers on going from the bottom to the top. Then you'll see where that fourth book overlaps the fifth book. I die cut a piece of terracotta cardstock and a piece of Tim Holtz pattern paper with 2 Spellbinders Essential Arches dies, and I glued those together before gluing them to the front of an A2 card base. I added some foam tape behind the assembled pile to attach it to the card front. That's a lovely thank you card for your favorite bibliophile. Thank you. Now, I mentioned my disappointment that there weren't really any images to color in this kit, so I decided that we'll just color the pile of books as is, and that gives us a "You are inspiring, amazing, wonderful, extraordinary" complimentary card. So I die cut the pile of books from some Bristol smooth cardstock, and I used my Tombow watercolor markers along with some water and a brush to color all the book covers. That satisfied my coloring mojo a little. Do note that I removed the top book from the pile. Yep, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books here. Now, once the watercoloring was dry, I stamped and embossed the spines using VersaFine Onyx Black ink with clear embossing powder for all the words and Versamark ink with gold embossing powder for the top and bottom books. I did use some craft tape on the back of this die cut to hold all of the cut lines together. I die cut a panel of white cardstock to 3 1/4 to just under 4 inches using a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. Yes, I know that die is 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, so I did some partial die cutting to bring that die cut down to size. That's just under 4 inches tall. I added a thin black mat behind that and glued those to a white card base. I used thick 1/8 inch thick foam tape on the back of the book pile and placed that in the center of the card front. A couple of strips of this nice alphabet washi tape completes the literary theme and complements the watercolors very nicely. You are inspiring, amazing, wonderful, extraordinary. The embossed spines add plenty of sparkle to this highly complimentary card. So that's the covers done with colored cardstock and simple watercolors. Let's try die cutting and coloring with alcohol markers. And that gives us "You are the author of your own story." I do like this pile of books. Note that here I cut the 2 top books off. We only have 6 books here. Now I die cut the pile from ivory cardstock again. I trimmed away the top 2 books, and I die cut the remaining 6 book covers from some alcohol-friendly white cardstock. Here's a pic of my Ohuhu alcohol markers that I used for the book die cuts in this pile. Now, I figured it was about time to play with the gold hero wax, so I used a paintbrush to color the edges of the die cut book pages with the wax. You can see there's that shine on the book pages here. Lots of old books have gold edging on the paper. After I added wax to the pages, I glued the colored covers in place. Note that book 2 overlaps book 3 here. And this pile looked so nice that I decided we didn't need any spine stamping at all, but that we could sure use more of that gold wax. I was surprised that we got this pot of gold hero wax in this kit, but didn't get any kind of stencils to use with the wax. Now, I dug through my stash and I found this nice kind of Rococo wallpaper stencil. I believe this is an old Michael stencil. It's very thin. So I took a 4-inch by 5¼ inch panel of the Seaside cardstock and I spread the gold hero wax on through the stencil. Really nice shine to that wax. When the stenciling was dry, I added a thin black mat and glued those down to a white A2 card base. Now, I was perusing my stash for alternate sentiments to use with this kit when I came across the My Monthly Hero March of 2021 card kit. This is the one I thought the "you are the author of your own story" sentiment was appropriate for a stash of untitled books. Not yet written. I stamped that on a scrap of Seaside cardstock with VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I embossed it with some clear embossing powder, and I trimmed it down to size. I added the foam tape behind the book pile and the sentiment and added those to the card front. I really do like this card a lot, whether it's the alcohol coloring on the book covers or the combination of that with this wallpaper in gold. You are the author of your own story. Best get to writing. Okay, so that's book piles of 8, 7, and 6. Now, maybe there's something that we can do with the 2 book cover dies that are only the book spines. And that gives us "You Are a Real Page Turner" with some actual books with titles on them. I took the cardstocks from the kit and I started die cutting the 2 spines from them. From the left, we've got Terracotta, Saffron, Tuscan, Seaside, and Terracotta again. Now, I stamped the spines with Black Soot, Walnut Stain, and Blueprint Sketch Distress Oxide inks. Now, it's easier to make a shorter book by just trimming down the die cuts with the die. Just slide it along, cut it off shorter. Then I sketched in some page-turning titles using my colored Pigma Micron pens. Not too shabby, if I say so myself. I'm very happy with those. Dickens, Dune, Lord of the Rings, Jaws, and Twain. So we've got 2 collections and 3 other adventure novels. I stamped the sentiment. Again, this is from the My Monthly Hero March 21 kit. "You are a real page turner" right there. I stamped that on a scrap of beeswax cardstock using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I embossed that with some clear embossing powder, and I trimmed it down to size with a Lawn Fawn Everyday Sentiment Banners die. I die cut a panel of my Staples ivory cardstock to 3¼ by 4½ with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. I ink blended some Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink around the edges. I also used that ink to add a little shading to the edges of our die cut books. Now, a thin black mat completes the background on a white card base, and I trimmed the sentiment to be our bookshelf and mounted everything to the card front with foam tape. Now, you may disagree with my idea of a page turner, but you could personalize this card to anyone's particular tastes. Harlequin romances, perhaps? You're a real page turner. Now, I'm running out of ideas on how to use the to-be-read pile of stamps and dies. I thought maybe playing with just the stamps might give us something a little more graphic. Let's try. So that gives us to make a long story short, I miss you. I started this card by stamping the 4 spine stamps on a panel of white cardstock using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I embossed them all with clear embossing powder. That was, of course, very flat and totally colorless. So I started thinking about how to add some color to this stamping. watercolors, alcohol markers. I even thought of covering the stampings with colored vellum. Finally, I realized that I could die cut masking with the spine dies and blend over the stampings to add color. So I've got two of them here. This one I cut down to make it smaller to fit the smaller books. There you go. It's overlapped there and there. I used Hero Arts Reactive inks in Taffy and Fruit Punch on top, Key Lime Fizz and Green Apple, Splash and Blue Hawaii, and Thistle and Grape Slush on the left. That added just the right touch of color that this card was begging for. I die cut that colored panel to 4 inches by 2 3/4 with the Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. I added a thin black mat behind. I cut a piece of the Bellini cardstock from the kit to 4.5 by 3.5, glued that to a white card base. I stamped this sentiment. Again, this is from the March of 21 My Monthly Hero kit. Where is it? There it is down here. To make a long story short, I miss you. I stamped that with VersaFine Onyx Black ink and embossed it with clear embossing powder. Some nice shine on that card. A bit more of a graphic card here, but the sentiment works, and the ink blended books provide an interesting frame with a little hello in the corner. To make a long story short, I miss you. Okay, I kind of feel like I've done about everything as far as experimenting with that to be read pile dies and stamps. So we're moving along to the Happy Place die set. And we've got just one more chapter. Now, I used my Staples Ivory cardstock to cut out the hand and forehead and the hair and the book pages too. I colored those with my Ohuhu alcohol markers, again using R18, 19, and 20 for the skin tones. I reached for some textured cardstock for the book. I found this little pack of Coordinations Brights cardstock with some great linen texture to them. I die cut the book from that Coordinations textured cardstock, and I die cut the embellishments from the same and used a darker red alcohol marker to color them before gluing them in place on the covers and the spine. I die cut the clothes from some random dot pattern paper in my stash using plain white for the cuffs. I gave them a little dimension by ink blending Black Soot Distress ink on their edges. I die cut the flowers and their centers from more beeswax cardstock. I colored the centers with a brown alcohol marker. I arranged all 9 of them on the cover of this book. And the leaf I die cut from ivory and colored with Hero Arts Key Lime Fizz and Apple Green Reactive inks. And I inset that on the back cover, meaning I die cut the leaf into the back cover and then inset the colored die cut in there. Now, this background is made from a Daniel Steele book, The Affair, that was printed in the New York Times many years ago as a special fold and cut booklet. And I, of course, put that in my pattern paper stash. I die cut a page of that to 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches, and I added a thin black mat before gluing those down to an A2 white card base. That's a perfect background. I glued the assemblage together and mounted it to the card front with foam tape. Now, I decided to go with this sentiment from the Professional Bookworm stamp and die set. I stamped that on a scrap of white cardstock with VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I embossed it with some clear embossing powder. I trimmed it down with the Lawn Fawn Everyday Sentiment Banners die. Now, in order to make this a little bit more useful as a greeting card, I decided to add this secondary sentiment on the inside. So we've got just one more chapter. Happy belated birthday. There you go. I think that's a pretty good reason for being a touch late. I created this sentiment using my Silhouette software and the Mutaka Mahi extra bold font. Printed that on the inside flap of the card base. There's a great belated birthday card for you. Now, while I was looking for a background for this last card, I did do a dry embossing of the book pile die on some watercolor cardstock, thinking it might work as a background behind our engrossed reader. Well, unfortunately, the assembled reader almost covers the entire pile of books, so it's not that useful as a background, but it did give me an idea for this next card, and that is, "You are literally amazing." Look at that watercolor card. I dry embossed the book pile die on more watercolor cardstock, but this time I inked the die with some walnut stained Distress Oxide ink before embossing. Then I took a brush and some water and started spreading that ink out from the lines. I did add a little more ink to help fill in the covers. I also used some vintage photo oxide ink as well. I really like this watercolor look, all in sepia tones. And that inking the die really shows the outline here. I die cut the watercolor panel to 3 3/4 by 5 inches with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. I added a thin black mat. The sentiment is once again from the My Monthly Hero 321 kit. I stamped that, there it is, "You're literally amazing." I stamped that with VersaFine Onyx black ink, but no embossing. I thought any shine would take away from the watercolor feeling on this congratulatory card. This is very similar to the stamp set, but with the whole compliment on one spine. Literally would have been a useful punny word to have in this stamp set. "You're literally amazing." Now, there is another sentiment in that March of 2021 My Monthly Hero kit that I think goes great with this set. That gives us this card: "Adventure is at your fingertips." At your fingertips. Get it? I can't help myself. I don't think you can find a more appropriate sentiment for this die set than this one. I die cut and assembled this reader like the first one I did, but I actually used Hero Art's liquid watercolor in cocoa for the skin tones, and I used vintage photo Distress Oxide ink for the shading on her clothing. The book is die cut from the Seaside cardstock, and the embellishments are cut from the Waterfall cardstock. The flowers were cut from ivory cardstock and colored with alcohol markers and glued to the covers, the small ones on the left, the big ones on the right. Now, the leaves on the Spellbinder Leafy 3D embossing folder look very similar to the leaves on the flowers. So I embossed a panel of green textured Coordinations cardstock, adding Hero Art's green apple ink to the embossing folder for a darker shade in the background. Love that embossing folder. I trimmed that down to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, added a thin black mat before gluing them both down to a white card base. The sentiment is stamped on a scrap of white cardstock with VersaFine Onyx black ink and embossed with some clear embossing powder. I die cut the sentiment with another Lawn Fawn Everyday Sentiments banner die and did a little ink blending on the edges with Key Lime Fizz reactive ink. Our reader and sentiment are mounted to the front of the card with foam tape. This leafy background is so immersive. It kind of makes me feel like I'm on the same chapter. Adventure is at your fingertips. As usual, I start thinking of ways to use this die set that doesn't necessarily entail having to build the entire reader. That usually leads me to something a little bit more graphic. And here's another perfectly appropriate sentiment from the My Monthly Hero March 21 kit: "Have a novel birthday." It's another birthday card. I die cut the 5 books from the Textured Coordinations cardstock. For the blue, green, red, and purple books, I used a negative die cut from the embellishment outline to guide my hand and color those outlines with a gold gel pen. Very easy to do that using that for your pattern. I took a scrap of white cardstock and I spread some of the gold hero wax on it for the embellishments on the yellow book. I also spread the gold wax on the exposed pages. I decided to inset the frames on the covers, so I die cut the frames from the center of the book covers and I inset the gold wax frames with the yellow centers. Now I stamped the sentiment. This is the last one from this kit. Have a novel birthday. I stamped that on the cover of the yellow book with Versamark ink and embossed that with gold embossing powder. Unfortunately, I didn't get a good embossing on the textured cardstock. Here it is. I just didn't get, it was just a little patchy there. So I pulled that inset panel off. I die cut another from the smooth side of the cardstock, replaced that inside the frame, and embossed the sentiment. Again, much nicer, perfectly embossed sentiment there. I decided to do the leaf in the same embossing powder. So I melted some gold embossing powder on a scrap of cardstock and I die cut the leaf from that. And of course I inset the leaf on the back cover of the book. That's a nice match to the sentiment. I glued the plain books in an interesting modified chevron to a white A2 card base, trimmed off their edges on either side, and then mounted the yellow book with thick foam tape behind the spine and thinner foam tape at the edges. Some enameled dots from the Hero Studio Card Kit of the Month for September of this year adds a little celebratory sparkle to this card. This is a perfect birthday card to go along with a book for your favorite reader. Have a novel birthday. So I've started to feel a little guilty about not using much of the professional bookworm stamp and die set. So that gives us digital detox in progress. I don't think I've ever combined a stamped sentiment with a printed sentiment, but I think this works quite well and is certainly a topical reminder to put down your screens every once in a while. I die cut, colored, and assembled our reader the same as the first one, and I used some pattern papers from the Sizzix Geometrics paper pad. I love this paper pad. I use it a lot. This little pattern here is my go-to pattern paper for computer stuff. I used the Hero Arts Splash Reactive Ink for the shading on the clothing. These look like pajamas, I have to admit. I used the gold wax for the cover embellishments. I decided to cut the inner panels of the book covers from the same pattern paper I used for the background. Now that gives this card a fun, kind of almost a see-through-y feel. I printed this sentiment on a scrap of white cardstock using my Silhouette software and the BM Hana Pro OTF font. Then I stamped the sh, which I did trim away from the accompanying I'm reading sentiment. I stamped that with VersaFine Onyx black ink, and I did some partial die cutting to cut out the shish, stopping right at the bottom and then completing that die cut with a simple square around the rest of the sentiment. The background is die cut to 3 3/4 by 5 inches with a thin black mat added and glued to an A2 white card base. Our reader is glued to the card front along the bottom edge, and then I use some foam tape behind the book and the head for a little dimension. Finally, I added this compound sentiment along the bottom with some foam tape. I do believe we could all use a little digital detox these days. What better way than with a book? Shh. Digital detox in progress. And that wraps up my 10 cards from one kit video using the Hero Studios Card Kit of the Month for November of 2025. This is actually quite a colorful collection of cards this month. And though I didn't use every single stamp, I did use all of the die sets. And despite my reservations at the beginning, I did get to do some coloring this month. Now, I do recognize that having the My Monthly Hero March of 2021 kit in my stash was a big help in creating these 10 usable greeting cards. I actually used all 6 sentiments from this old kit. Thank you, stash. Though all these cards are book-oriented, I think I did manage to get a good variety of looks this month. I really like this short stack of colored books on the Gold Hero Arts wax background, and the sepia-toned watercolor card really stands out, as well as the graphic novel birthday card. Both of these die sets are very unique, and I know where I'll turn when I need a greeting card for a real book lover. Let me know which cards are your favorites. As usual, if you'd like to get this kit for yourself, you will need to subscribe to the Hero Studio Card Kit of the Month by November 27th. If you do go shopping at Hero Arts, please use my links listed below. I make a small commission from whatever you buy at no cost to you. That helps support this channel and keeps a little fun inspiration coming your way. Thank you so very, very much for sharing some time with me here today. Your eyeballs mean so much to me. If you enjoyed this video, please click the thumbs up at the top of this page. If you haven't subscribed, please click the subscribe button and the notify bell so you know when I put up a new video. Please take a few moments to like me, list me, pin me, post me, share this post with all of your crafty friends. And remember, don't run with scissors. As always, I send you and yours love and light and happy crafting. For more detailed information, better pictures, and product links, please visit my website at cardcutups.com.